Hi, in this tutorial we'll be looking at arrays in PHP. In the previous tutorials we looked at how to create variables. So variables can hold or store values in them that can be used over and over again in the program. And we looked at how to create and use variables, but the limitation of variables is that they can only contain a single value at a time. So for example, if you create a variable called month, it can only contain 1 month value in it at a time. So a variable called month might be given the value January as a string, and then that's all that it will be able to hold. It can't hold multiple separate values in there. Okay, so variables can contain a single value at a time, just one value at a time. So one number, one string. If it's a Boolean, it's either true or false. It can't be both. Um, One float, doesn't matter what data type it is, variables only contain one value at a time. On the other hand, we have arrays, and arrays are kind of like lists. So an array can contain several different values in it all at the same time, so many different values. All right, so if we created an array called months, it could contain separate strings like January, February, March, and so on, separate strings as individual values in the array. And we could access each of those values separately. Okay, so an array is kind of like a list, and they can become very complicated as well. You can have multi-dimensional arrays, so it's like arrays inside of arrays. Um, we'll be looking at multi-dimensional arrays in another tutorial, and arrays are also quite useful to store a whole heap of values and then loop through those values and process them using something like a for loop. And we'll look at that in another tutorial as well. What we're going to do today is create an array and then look at how to access each item in the array. Okay, so to get started, to create an array, it's a little bit like creating a variable. So we give it a name. So we say $months for this example. So I'm going to create an array with that contains the months of the year as separate string values in this array. Okay, so I've got $months equals, and then you say array, and in brackets, you separate each value in the array. So if this array was going to contain integer values, then we could just separate integer values with commas, so we could have multiple values in there. But because months are they contain letters, this is going to be a string, so they're going to be inside quotation marks. So I'm going to add the first few months of the year. All right, so we've got January, February. All right, so notice that the strings or the months are inside quotation marks, but then they're separated by commas. So I've got 1, 2, 3 values inside this array so far. All right, so I'll keep going. So January, February, March, April, May, and June. That's what we'll add for now. Okay, so just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the first 6 months of the year. I'm going to add a comment. So we're creating a simple array with 6 elements inside it. Okay, so these are different elements in the array. Okay, I've actually made a mistake here. Just got to put that comma on that side there. Okay. Yep, that looks much better. Okay, so we've created an array. It's not being used yet. Now what we'll do is we'll return a value of one of the elements in the array. So we've got 6 elements in this array. We're going to return one of those, the value of one of those. Okay, so I'll add a comment to explain what we're doing. To return the value of the first, we'll display the value of the first element, so the first month in the array. We'll do that first. Now, an array, to keep track of all the different elements in the array, each element is indexed. So it's given an index or an index number. And basically an array starts counting from 0. Okay, so January has an index of 0. February has an index of 1. March has an index of 2. April has an index of 3, May has an index of 4, and June has an index of 5. So we start from 0, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so even though there's 6 elements inside there, we only have indexes 0 to 5 because we start counting from 0, not from 1. So if we want to echo or display the first month or the first element in its value in this array, then we can refer to the array's name. So we can say echo $months, and then in square brackets we can refer to the index number. So the first one, if we want January, is going to be 0. Okay, so we'll save that, and then we'll view it in the browser, refresh that, and then we have January printed out there, or echoed out. Okay, if we change this to 1, then we should get February. If we change it to 2, we should get March, and so on. Okay, if we try to put 6 in, we'll probably get an error, and it says notice undefined offset 6 in, and then it says on line 6. So what's happened here is we've got 6 elements in this array, but because indexing starts at 0, it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. June is the last element that exists. It has an index of 5, so 6 does not exist in this array. All right, so I'll change that back to 0. That's what's going on there. Now, at the moment, we've only got 6 months in this array, but there are 12 months in the year. So if we want to add more values to the array, we can use the array push method. So I'm going to add another comment here. So we'll use the array push method to add 1 or more items. I'll just shorten that to add 1 or more items to the array. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say array push with an underscore between array and push. And then in brackets, I've got a few different arguments here. First one is the actual array name. So when I put array push and then brackets, firstly inside the brackets, I have to name the array that I want to add values to. And then after that, separated by commas, I can specify the values that I want to push into this array or add to the array. All right, so I can say we're up to June, so I can add July. And then if that was the only month that I wanted to add, then I could just end that line with a semicolon, and that would be it. It would add July to the end of this array, so it would have an index of 6. But I'm going to add more than just July. I'm going to finish off all the months of the year. So I'm going to say we've got April, May, June, July, August. All right, September, October, November, and lastly, my favorite month of the year, December. All right, so now we're adding all of these different values to the months array using the array push method. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'm going to get rid of this line here, all these 2 lines. I'm going to add it down here. All right, save that and refresh the page. So using 0 as an index, we get January still. Now if we put in 6, we should get July. There we go. So we've got July. Put in 10. We get November. And if we put in the last index, it should finish there at December. Okay. Remember, there's 12 months in the year, but there's no index of 12 because it starts counting from 0. So 11 is the last index. All right, so that worked. Array push has added all of these different values to the array. So now there's 12 records in the array with indexes 0 all the way up to 11. Okay, now the next thing, or 2 more things that we'll do for this tutorial. One is that we'll display the values in an array and their key, all right, or their index. And then we'll display the values in an array as well as the actual size of the array, or how many elements there are in the array, and the size of each element in the array. Okay, so I'm going to I'm going to comment out this line here where it says echo $months 11. because I'm just going to leave that for now. I don't want anything else on the screen except for what I'm about to do. So I'll add a comment for what I'm about to do, which is display the values or the elements in the array and their key. And to do that, I'm going to not use echo, but we need to use print r. And then we can say array underscore values. And then in brackets, we put the name of the array in, which is months, or $months, and end that. Okay, so we're not using echo this time, we have to use print r, and then we're basically going to display or output the array values from the array called months. Okay, I'll save that. We'll refresh this page, and there we go. So we've got array, and then in brackets we have the index of each element or each item in this array, followed by the actual value in that index or in that position in the array. So we've got 0 is January, 1 is February, 2 is March, 3 is April, 4 is May, 4 is May, 5 is June, 6 is July, and so on, all the way up to 11, which is December. Okay, so that's printing out, displaying the array values there, as well as the index of each item or each element in the array. Now I'm going to comment out this one so that I can show you the next one. All right, what we'll do here is display the values in the array as well as the size of the array and the size of each element or each individual element in the array. Okay, to do that, we're going to use var dump. So say var dump array values $months, so the array name there. Okay, so it's exactly the same as what we did a minute ago, except this time instead of saying print r, we're saying var dump, which when I refresh the PHP file, I get array. All right, then in brackets, I get the number of items or number of elements in this array. So there's 12 elements in the array. So we didn't get that before when we used print r. So now we're getting the number of elements in the array. And then we have the actual array here. And we have what data type each of these values are, or each of these elements are. So they're all strings. So they say string. Okay. So we've got the index number of each item in the array. Then we have the type or data type of that element. Then we have the number of characters or the length of that value. All right. So the first item in the array, which this array has a length of 12, so there's 12 items in it. The first item with the index 0 is a string. It's January, and it has a length of 7. So January has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters. Okay. Then the index number 1 contains a string. The value is February, and it has a length of 8, and so on. So we're getting a lot of information here. We're getting the size of the array, we're getting the data types stored in the array, we're getting the indexes of each item in the array, and we're also getting the length of each item in the array. Okay, this is a lot going on there. If you create an array and you want to see what's contained in it, then you can use var dump to see a lot of information about that array. All right, I'm going to uncomment these lines here now, and I'll upload this sample code for you to try out. But that's all that we'll do for this tutorial. We've created an array, we've added values to the array, we've displayed the values in the array, and in the next few tutorials we'll look at multi-dimensional arrays, and we'll also look at how to loop through arrays. Thanks for watching.